2 years ago, in Catalonia, happened some historic events. Catalan people tried to create a referendum. There was a conflict between the Spanish government, Catalan government, and at that point happened something that, at least for me and for many other people, it's like the Catalan government tried to use decentralized technology to try to avoid settlement that was the Spanish government was trying to do. This was an important point because we learned a lot on that. It was very few days, it was less than 1 week or 2 weeks, but we learned a lot in that events. We learned that bringing decentralization to the real world is not easy. That's very easy for central powers to actually stop. So if we put together the learnings of that days and also the dreamings of the Catalan people for building a new state, me as myself, for example, was thinking, what's the state that you want? What do you want to build? We had like the opportunity to create a new state at that moment. So we, we just discovered a little bit what decentralization was about, and we were trying to do the exercise of see, okay, what should be built? How can we build a new state that's actually decentralized? So putting these things together, just was thinking, what could be the next steps? What should be done in order this to happen? And with this, we created what we can call a strategy that with that time, it was also my strategy for going to decentralization. Of course, this is a personal story. For me, it's for Catalonia, but this is exactly the same that if you want to create a new decentralized state, or as we will see later, maybe better, a decentralized community. So let's start by splitting a little bit the strategy. The strategy, we divided in 6 layers. Here are the layers, and we are going to go one layer by one layer. The first layer is the bottom layer, is the network layer. During these days, the state only had to go to the ISPs, to the internet service providers, and just tell them, okay, this domain must be censored. And it took just one click in some place. It was really easy. So here is the first point that we see when we are trying to go to decentralization of ISPs. So the first thing that we need to build, and this is very important, is the decentralized network layer. We are talking about cables, we are talking about antennas, we are talking about this physical layer. Trying at least to have, if not direct connections between the persons, at least having many internet service providers. That's the first thing. Here, some topics that are in this layer that are very interesting. I just want to mention them. But for example, having communities with common network structures that can be an investment share of some fiber, for example, or then the control or the exploitation of that. That's one path to work on. The other thing is more in the protocol layer. IP, TCP/IP in general is quite decentralized, but still not decentralized. We have still the ICANN, we have still the RIPE, we have some centralized structures that still control the network. So we still need to work with these decentralized protocols. Maybe some of them with these micropayments systems that are more decentralized. Okay, this is a network layer. Okay, we have not been working very much on that. I know that there is a lot of groups and communities that are working hard on that. So, what's the next layer? Well, the next thing besides the network layer is what we call it the infrastructure layer. But if you want, the nodes layer, the servers layer. What happened right now is that, well, we see a big list of decentralized applications that are in the space. But if we really watch them closely, we see that very few of them are really decentralized. Most of them are running in some cloud service like AWS or Azure, some big servers. Maybe they're running through Infura or some other centralized service. So we need to have many nodes. And that only happens by that everybody, or at least having as many nodes in the people's homes, in the people's places, so we really have a decentralized. All the applications will need this infrastructure. When you are building a decentralized application, you will need these pieces of code to be across many places. Right now, the only decentralized applications that actually are the currencies, like Bitcoin, Ethereum. But if we see other decentralized applications, actually they are not very centralized at current time. Here is where we created DAppNode. DAppNode is one of the, well, it's trying to put, trying to facilitate that for regular users to put a node in his home, but a lot of work needs to be there. First is just trying to understand what are the incentives, what are the right incentives for the user to put those nodes in the places, how we can create a funding structure for these projects, etc. But this is, I just want to be clear that this is very important. Also, this layer is important because it can help the user to have a gateway to decentralization. When you have, for example, multiple devices like a mobile phone or a tablet, it's very easy to create application that just talk with your personal server. You still keep decentralization because the server is yours, so you can synchronize the devices through your server, and then the server is the one that actually is connected to the decentralized world. So this piece of hardware, in this case, is, I believe, that's very important for having a decentralization. Of course, it's not the only option. Of course, you can have servers, you can build your own server, that's the best case, but it's an important part, and is something that we need to work and to take in account. Okay? Next layer is, well, this is the most known in this audience, is the blockchain. I don't need to explain what's a blockchain. But I want to say that if we want to go to mainstream, we need to scale that. That's important. I can say that 2 years ago, I was very skeptical about the scalability of blockchain, but right now I'm very optimistic. Here I want just to mention the 3 paths that can work, that they are independent one of the other. You can work so the 3 can work together of scalability options that we have right now. One of those is state channels, payment channels, or what's like second layer applications. And mainly is you do the things off chain, and when there is a conflict, you go on chain. That's the basic idea of this idea. And we have another idea that's like connecting multiple chains. This is mainly what Polkadot is trying to do. It's like connecting many chains. And the other one that's more recent, and I think I'm very optimistic about that, is the idea is to split the problem of scaling into parts. One is the validation part, or if you want the computation part, and the other is the data availability part. With that, we have a technology, it's a zero-knowledge technology, but actually you don't even need to be zero-knowledge. It can be called maybe computation proofs. And mainly it allows you to execute 1 million transactions and create a very small proof that can be verified in a time constant, few milliseconds. So you can have a blockchain that processes thousands, even millions of transactions, maybe have a huge cluster, or maybe many computers working together for generating that proofs. And when this proof is generated, it can be included in the block, and then this is verified for the rest in the rest of the chain. Even with that, you can verify a full blockchain with a single proof in milliseconds without even having to download the full blockchain nor the headers, neither the headers. So that's of course is a new technology. It's working. We are working a lot on that side, and this is very hopeful. And I'm sure that in the next month or years, we will see that happen in the upcoming projects. Okay? Next layer. This is, if we want to create a decentralized state, this is very important because the states at the end are about persons, so they're about individuals. So having an identity, it's really key. And here is probably where in the last years I have been putting most of my effort. It's to working in an identity system. So what are the requirements of this identity system? Of course, identities needs to be self-sovereign identity, and identity at the end is, well, it's difficult to understand because it's very philosophical, what's an identity, but everybody knows what's an identity. When you connect to any application, you see a login, so you are saying who you are or what access you have. So you are revealing part of your identity to some places. So how a decentralized identity should work? Well, first, it needs to be very easy to create an identity, or even if you want many identities. It should be, everybody should become a certification authority. So we don't need to depend in a state or in a bank or in a big corporation for doing for creating these validations. It should be, and every person should be able to do this claim, these attestations if you want, and the set of attestations, this is what gives the reputation of the person. The reputation and the identity are very close words, if not synonyms on that. So that is a big database with identities, with claims that are, maybe just one identity says that the identity university saying that this claim has this title. That's an example of claim. And then the proofs. You are proving that you have this title, or you are proving that somebody make a claim on me, on you. And these proofs, here is an important piece that's very important, is the privacy. So when we want to build systems that are private by default, that are private by design, we need this, in this case, is these technologies that allows to reveal data, but only the specific data that actually need. And a lot of time it's not even the identity. You just want to prove that you have a title, or that you want to prove that you are 18 years old without revealing who you are. That's the typical example. So privacy is very important. So sovereign identity needs to be scalable. This is very related with that. When everybody's doing claims, this needs to scale. That's very, very important. And then the other part that we are working on, is very important, is all the key recovery. Here is, in these decentralized systems, we need to talk about responsibility. People need to be responsible for that. But at the same time, we need to put that easy, to be usable. So here is where all the social key recovery and other techniques must be worked and are included in this block. But these are very important if we want to create a society, a decentralized society. So next layer is, well, it's a huge layer. Can be, let's say, the tokenization layer. We can start, if you want, what we understand with the normal currency. Each community used to have a currency, each state used to have a currency. Here we can create currencies. Of course, we have the technology to create currencies that maybe the monetary policy, for example, depends on a governance system. Or we can decide which monetary policy we want to use. When we link that with identities, for example, here is where we can create universal basic incomes policies. Here, but tokenization is not only about the currency, it's also about having fungible and non-fungible tokens. We have all set of accountability. We have all set of transparency. So it can give this layer of transparency and accountability that can give a state that actually everybody trusts, everybody understands what's going on and what's happening So, and then let's go to the toppest layer that I'm going to talk. The toppest layer is about governance. At the end, we are building all that stuff just for making decisions as a community. So, for me, when we are talking about governance, what it comes to my mind, and that's what at least is my dream, is to have liquid democracy. What's liquid democracy? I'm sure that most of you know what it is, but the main idea is that you are responsible of your vote. You have your quota of power. The power is distributed because the distribution of the power, so I have my part of the power. Power is exactly the same as responsibility, so I have my quota also of responsibility. So I can decide whatever I want to do with my power, with my, if you want, is my token power, or my part of the power. And this is what, in liquid democracy, what I can do is, if you want, you can vote in everything that's happening, so I can use that. That probably will be very ineffective, because I should be all day long knowing what's going on in my community, knowing what's happening. But if you want to do, you can do it. But what you also can do is you can delegate that. And you don't need to do that only every 4 years. You can delegate some node today, and maybe in 1 year change it, maybe in 5 years later change it again. And you not even that, you can change it, for example, for topics. You can change maybe for everything that's related to health, I'm going to delegate to him. Maybe something that's everything that's delegated to environment, I'm going to delegate to the other. Here, liquid democracy have a lot of advantages, but it gives, for example, a lot of, for example, some minorities can be converted to majorities because you don't need to choose like the full pack like now. I need to choose this party because it's more or less the one that feels, statistically feels more or less what I think. You can specifically say and use the power in a more efficient way, more direct way. So, but governance is not only about decisions, it's not only about voting. Of course, there are other phases of governance, like for example, the proposal phase, what needs to be voted, that's something that needs to be handled. Then there is another part that I think is very important, it's the discussion phase. It's what used to happen, for example, in the parliaments. I want to say that, for example, in Catalan, parlar, it means to talk. It's about talking. So this phase of talking, understanding, knowing what happened, what are the different options, this is an important part of the governance that needs to be handled. And here, information, window information using the identity have a lot of, it can be done a lot of things. Of course, the discussion phase, the decision phase where you are voting and deciding. And then there is another phase that's not in the slides, but it's also important. That's like so once the things are voted, then it's like how they are controlled, how they are monitored, how they are executed. What's the execution plan of this proposal is actually happening. And this is where maybe all the tokenization takes a lot of sense. So you see that these are layers, but they are connected all together. And when you connect them, is when you create this, you can create this infrastructure. We can create, of course, governance systems that are personal-based, one person, one vote, but can be also one token, that can be one reputation token, or even one stake token, or a mix of them. We can create, there is a lot of possibilities here about governance. Of course, I'm not a social expert, but here is a layer for creating more things. We have been talking only about the infrastructure layers. This is the basic layer. This is the basic, it's like the operating system. Here is where you can construct things. You can construct apps. You can construct things that helps communities. And here, I want to mention that we are to start talking. I've been changing from state to communities during all this presentation. I have been mixing that very much and going to that direction because I think it's more appropriate that. So actually, I want to change the title of this presentation. Instead of creating a new state, maybe it's creating a new community-based world. I believe that states are an old structure, a very artificial structure. Maybe they work well for sometimes ago, maybe 200 years ago, where most of the people were not, they don't even know how to write or read. And there was a very small part of the people that had to take care of the rest of the people. But in actual days, most of the people have education, especially in the West countries. So, and they even have better preparation that in the government, the politicians and the people that's taking care of the power that we have right now. So it makes a lot of sense that we empower the people, that we give the people to make better governance, better decision takings in a community base. That's an important part. And I want to finish with this slide because, well, here we see that we have the communities, but in the top we have individuals. Because at the end, we are building that, and the end goal of building a better country is building a community or a place or a world where we, as humans, we can live better. And what's the way that I think that we can live better? Which mainly it's about trying to reach freedom. And what means trying to reach freedom? Right now we have lots of people that are working and they are having a lot of problems just to reach the end of the month to get their salary. They are the slaves of their places. We need a world where the people work in what they believe. We need a world where the people work for the community, where the people feels good because they are working for the rest of the community. All of you that had this feeling at some point when you are in a community and you see that most of the people is contributing to the community without expecting very much in return, that feeling is very high, and the productivity of the society and the happiness of the society is much, much, much better. So this is a little bit the path I just wanted to share. It's just my path, it's just my thoughts, it's just my strategy of my life that I wanted to share with you, because I think we can, all of you can take some conclusions out of that. So here is the new title. Thank you very much.